Hey guys, it's Katha here again and welcome back to my channel. Welcome back to my monthly wrap-up. For this video, I have everything that I read and saw in the month of February, and I am sorry that this is kind of late because it's already like the first half of March is kind of already over, but I was really busy. I was supposed to film last week, but I ended up taking up 2 extra shifts, so now is my only moment of peace and quiet and natural light when I can actually just record something. For this video, like I mentioned, I will be giving you my monthly wrap-up, and this is every book that I read in the month of February and also every movie and TV show that I saw again in the month of February. I surprised myself a little this month because I ended up reading 3 books. 2 were physical and 1 was an audiobook, and I'm really glad that I did that, even though they are kind of on the shorter side. Even so, I do consider this an accomplishment for myself because I usually end up with just 1 or a maximum of 2. So 3 is really good, at least personally for me. First book that I read is 2001: A Space Odyssey by Arthur C. Clarke. This is a science fiction novel, and it is, I think it's considered a classic. It is about, actually it's about quite a few things. It was really interesting. It starts off with primal times when humans were starting to develop and starting to evolve into more intelligent creatures. Honestly, I was not expecting that at first because I thought we'd jump right into space travel and the moon and aliens, but no, we started off way back. And basically it depicts how humanity started evolving in a way, and we do see a glimpse into the world as seen from Moonwatcher, who was a sort of primate or a primal human, if I may say. I don't think it says specifically what time period it was or what stage of human evolution it was, but it was definitely somewhere way back. Then we go a little bit into the future, and humanity has developed space travel and has landed on the moon, where they find a mysterious alien monolith buried underneath the surface of the moon, and they start wondering what it is, why, who put it there, why is it there, and we follow Dr. Frank as he encounters this monolith. And after that, we travel a few years into the future once again, and we follow Dave, who is on an exploration mission with his crew and their supercomputer HAL 9000. Something weird starts happening on their ship. Their computer starts registering these weird errors. It starts acting up strange, and basically it's about their survival on the spaceship and trying to continue their mission. And in the end, we sort of get a glimpse of what their mission actually was, which isn't what was told to them in the beginning. This was a really great read. I had a lot of fun reading this. The writing style is a little old-timely, I guess, but I loved it. As I've mentioned, English is my second language, so I feel like it's always important to mention if I had trouble with the English or not, just because some people whose native language is not English as well can understand whether the writing was good or bad, or just, harder or easier. Personally, I didn't have any trouble with this, so I would recommend, even if you're not a native English speaker. There weren't too many technical terms, not any at all, but there were some amazing quotes and some amazing ideas in this. There were glimpses of all different scenarios, like the computers and aliens and humanity's start, where we started, how we developed into intelligent beings. Did somebody help? What do they end up looking now? We get to explore a lot of different aspects. So personally, I really loved that about this book. The one thing I wasn't super hyped about was the ending, because the ending was just kind of weird. I understand where the author was coming from, but at the same time, I don't know. I feel like I needed a bit more. And I do know that there are a few more books that are kind of, I don't know if they're a continuation. I need to check, but I did order them and I'm waiting for them to arrive from Amazon. So I am waiting to start the other 3 books, and I will let you know if it's actually a series and if it answers all the questions that I am left with the ending of this book. The next book that I read is All Systems Red by Martha Wells, and this is volume 1 or book 1 in the Murderbot Diaries. And this is a weird one. It's a very short book. It's very easy to read. Even the the letters are gigantic, and there's like this much spacing between the page and the text. So this was a very quick read. I enjoyed this. It follows this team of scientists who are accompanied by their security unit, and that security unit is actually hacked. So the SEC unit has hacked its own systems, but they don't know that. The company that the SEC unit belongs to doesn't know that either, and the SEC unit is basically just very antisocial and kind of likes humans but doesn't like interacting with them. So we follow along his inner thoughts and his inner turmoils on every single interaction that he has with humans. They're on an alien planet, and they actually end up being sabotaged by somebody else, and some events start happening. The SEC unit tries to help the humans and so on and so forth. So it was an interesting read. Honestly, it wasn't my favorite book. I'm kind of on a electronic devices, space travel, Android type of a vibe right now, so I am reading and watching anything that I possibly can about androids, and this was definitely not my favorite. It's interesting, it's a good concept, but honestly the writing style is a little bland for me. The story was kind of lacking. I think I ended up giving this 3 stars, maybe it's like 2.5. It was interesting, it was nice, it was a good just filling of time for me, but I don't know, I guess if it sounds interesting and you just want to kill some time, I would recommend it. But if you think that it's the amazing book that follows what an android actually feels and thinks, you're gonna be kind of disappointed. The next book that I have is called We Are Legion, We Are Bob, and it is the first book in the Bobbyverse, something like that. It is a 3-part series, and I listened to it as an audiobook. It is by Dennis E. Taylor, and it follows Bob, who lives in our current time and signs up for this program that is supposed to freeze him and sustain his consciousness and then wake him up sometime in the future. So the day that he signs up for that, it actually turns out to be his last day on Earth, and he gets hit by a car, I think, and dies. So that's not a spoiler. That happens in like the first chapter, and he wakes up 130 years in the future, and he actually ends up being an AI. So his consciousness has been transferred into a supercomputer, and now he's like a supercomputer. So this one will probably make it into my favorites of the year. I loved it so much. I loved the humor in this. I love the space exploration because we do end up to go into space. It is very dynamic. It goes very fast, but it's not overwhelming. I do have to say that at times I did feel a bit overwhelmed with all the technical information that we would get in form of an audiobook, because if I was reading it as a physical book, I would have had the option to go through the paragraph again so I can digest the information better, but unfortunately as an audiobook it was a bit harder, so some of it did go over my head, but it was very interesting nonetheless. We did end up seeing some engineering aspects, some space exploration aspects, some physics aspects. Yeah, we end up exploring quite a bit, even some planets. He ends up explaining why certain types of life developed on certain types of planets, which I personally found extremely interesting. I always love science, I love space, I love physics, and I love hearing the different scientific opinions and theories on different types of planets, what sort of life might develop and why. So that was very interesting. There was also a bit of more the political side to things, where humanity is kind of on the edge of war, and after some time in the book there is actually war, so there's also that aspect. Basically humanity is made to look very, honestly, stupid in my opinion. That was like the only thing that I felt a little bit iffy about in the book, is that the way that humanity was represented was kind of like a caricature, so it was very, very bad, and which I guess was meant to kind of show contrast between the AI ex-human and the future humans. That was the only thing that I kind of didn't like about it, but overall this is my favorite book that I've read so far this year, so it probably will make it to my top this year. Next up, I'll be talking about the movies that I saw in the month of February. I saw 2 new movies in the cinema and 2 old ones, so I saw a total of 4 movies. The first movie that I saw in the cinema was Glass, or Mr. Glass. I can't remember what the actual name was. I think it was just Glass. I am not a fan of that movie. It was okay. I guess. It was kind of very slow, boring, and kind of pointless. And the ending was great, but it was absolutely nothing unexpected. It was something completely foreseen, at least for me, and honestly, I'm kind of sad just because they could have went in such a different way and they didn't, and I'm very disappointed with this movie, but I hear people enjoyed it, so yay for them. If you watched it and enjoyed it, then I'm so happy for you. It just wasn't my cup of tea. The next movie that I saw was How to Train Your Dragon 3, which was stunning and cute and adorable and amazing, and I love this franchise. I love the movies. The last movie was actually the one animation that got me to cry in the theater, so that doesn't happen often. This one, I think it was The Hidden World, was it? And this one was really, really amazing. I loved having this moment of exploring family, more of the family ties and what dragons meant to people, and in particular what Hiccup means to Toothless and what Toothless means to Hiccup. And I love this movie. Of course, the graphics, the animation, everything was beautiful. The idea was great. I really did enjoy the idea. I wasn't extremely happy with the ending just because I felt like they kind of wrapped it up too fast, but still, it was an amazing movie and I'm really happy that I watched it. The next few movies that I saw are actually old, and I just ended up catching up because, like I mentioned, I'm kind of on a sci-fi vibe, and I ended up catching up with some old classic sci-fi movies, or just the best ones. So I watched District 9 and Independence Day 1 and 2, and I'm kind of putting them in one category just because I watched them kind of one after the other. District 9 was an amazing movie. It had a very different perspective and a very different direction that it went in. It follows this alien ship that comes close to Earth, and it ends up that it's kind of like a refugee alien ship, and these aliens are actually running away and they are searching for a new home. So that's very different than what we usually see. The humans kind of rescue the aliens and they set them up in these refugee camps, and the aliens start living amongst humans for like 20 years, so that's a long time. At first we follow the movie kind of like from the perspective of different cameras. I do think that, so that was one thing that was very different than usual movies, and I'm trying not to say too much because we do follow this main character, two main characters. One is human and one is an alien, and the human is kind of like this office dweeb that gets put on this important position, and he starts kind of abusing his power, and he's kind of like a communication link between the aliens and the humans, and then the alien that turns out to be extremely smart, and he's just trying to escape with his youngling, his son, and escape to a new world. So we follow kind of their the human and the two aliens' kind of connection and their relationship, if we can call it that, and just them trying to kind of screw over each other and also help each other out. So it's an interesting movie. I would recommend it if you haven't seen it. It's definitely different than anything I've ever seen, and the animations were really great. The aliens were very, really well made. They were kind of gross and looked like cockroaches, and I had a hard time looking at them, so that means that they were well made and they actually ended up looking like cockroaches, so great. Independence Day 1 and 2 are two movies that I saw one after the other. The first movie I really, really enjoyed. I loved it. It was about this alien invention. No, it's not an invention. It's not an intervention. What was the word? Oh my god, an alien intervention. Jesus. Alien invasion. It's about the alien invasion, and the aliens come and they decide to wipe us all out, and basically how humanity reacts and what we do to just, get rid of them. That was the first movie. It was a good movie. I enjoyed it, definitely. The second one, not so much. It felt like it's a complete ripoff of the first one. It's the exact same movie told from a, different perspective, if I may say, but again, it's kind of the same people. So the first movie's characters have kids, and these kids are kind of taking over, and they do exactly the same thing. So the second one is kind of a waste of time, but the first one is really good, and I would recommend it. The last movie that I saw is again an old one. It is Blade Runner, the old version with Harrison Ford. This was the worst movie of all time. I am not gonna lie. I will get so much hate for this, but I hated it so much. I hated every single second of this movie. I understand that the world building is something that kind of made this into a classic, and I understand why, and you hear my thoughts on Philip Dick's writing style. I will talk about him in a second, but Blade Runner was the slowest, most painful, uneventful, unmemorable movie that I have ever seen. I don't even know if they had a point to it, if it had any kind of story. They were just a bunch of robots. Some of them were rogue, other ones were just didn't know they were robots, and like it was just so bad. And I am very curious to actually read the books to find out what the idea of this whole thing was, because the movie is so incredibly bad that I can't. So unleash the hate in the comments. The last thing that I will be talking about are the TV shows that I saw. One of them is called Life Sentence with Lucy Hale, and I think this was a controversial show because it follows our main character, who is portrayed by Lucy Hale, who has cancer, and she thinks that it's terminal and she is going to die, so she lives every day as if she's going to die, and one day it ends up being that she's actually cured and she doesn't have cancer anymore. So this was a very controversial one. I do remember some stories coming out. I understand why it's controversial. I definitely see the problems that it has. And at the same time, I kind of enjoyed it just because it showed very real emotions in people and kind of what happens when you prepare for one scenario and it happens in a completely different way. So that was interesting. The family dynamics were interesting. The main character was just no. But the other characters were interesting. Their development was interesting and was unique in a way. And I did enjoy that aspect of it, finding out what different characters thought about this situation and how they live their life preparing for one thing and how it affects them later on when it turns out that she's cured. So that was interesting. I guess if you want to kill some time, it was a cute show that deals with very heavy topics in a lighter way. So if that does not bother you and sounds interesting, I would recommend it because I did have a good time watching it. Some moments were sad, some were very cringy, and it was a good TV show to kind of kill some time with. The last TV show that I am so excited to talk about is Electric Dreams. Now, this is why I mentioned Philip Dick in the previous one when I was talking about Blade Runner, because watching Electric Dreams kind of made me want to watch Blade Runner, even though I knew that I wasn't going to like it. I was kind of prepared. I was not prepared for the level of not liking it that I experienced, but yes, this TV show, Electric Dreams, is so amazing that absolutely anyone could watch this and find something that they enjoy in it. Let me tell you why. It is a TV show containing 10 episodes. Every single episode is different. It has a different story, a different idea, different actors, different setting. Everything is different. Each episode is kind of like a mini movie. So these 10 episodes, I believe every single one of them is based off of a short story or novella or a shorter novel from Philip K. Dick. Every single story is his, and this was something that was in the makings, I believe in 2015 by CBS or some other network. They ended up scrapping the project, but Amazon bought it, and very famous actors that play in it. Bryan Cranston is one of them. He is actually, I think, the producer of some of the episodes, if not even the whole show. So he also plays in one of the episodes. I am going to do a separate video on just this TV show because I think it deserves it, and I think it deserves going through every single episode and saying what I liked and what I didn't about every single one of them. So stay tuned for that. This one I will definitely make. I promise you I will make this video. So stay tuned for that. I'm going to talk about the show as a whole for now. I absolutely loved it. This is probably my favorite TV show that I've watched for years now, and I loved it so much that I actually told my mom to watch it, and I told her which episodes to watch. She ended up watching them and then watching the whole thing just because it was so good, and we ended up even buying this huge book with hardcovers. It's like this big with a collection of short stories by Philip Dick, and she's almost read it through it. I started it, but she kind of stole it away from me. So stay tuned for that one as well. When I get the chance, I will read it. I love this show so much. I love the ideas that this man had about the future, about the human psyche, about what humanity is as a whole, as what problems we have. It was just so much and so different ideas, and I think he only lived for like 50 years and he ended up dying in the 80s. And just to see what a man who lived in the 50s and 60s thought the future would look like for us is incredible, just because it's so real. It's like he foresaw so many issues and problems that we actually end up having right now. And I'm going to give you just one example. There was one episode that talked about kids, teenagers in high school who were being monitored constantly by these bracelets that they had, kind of like Fitbits. So these bracelets would constantly monitor them, check their location, see who they interact with, see what even thoughts they have, what their physical experiences were. And it just reminded me so much of like nowadays when we have these phones and when we have this location, these cameras, there's microphones that are constantly listening to our conversations, they're constantly monitoring us, and they're constantly keeping track of every single person and what they do, who they interact with. It's very real, and he saw that in like the 70s and the 80s. People didn't even have internet back then. So that's just one example. I will go into more detail in the kind of review that I'm going to do about this show, but this show is really amazing and I would recommend it to anyone who likes even the slightest futuristic things about it. Like I said, every single episode is different, so if you end up watching one or two and you don't like them, continue on because they're completely different as you go on. That's it from me today, guys. This was my entire wrap up for the month of February. I would love to hear what movies did you see in the cinema, what did you see at home, and did you read anything that left a lasting mark on you in the month of February? Leave them down below. Also, if you've seen or read anything that I mentioned in this video, I would love to hear your opinion in the comments down below, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!